On Thursday, September 13, 2018, I stay after school at work for a party at my job as a humanities teacher in Lawrence, Massachusetts, which is about 40 minutes north of Boston. There are parents, teachers, students, and local business owners there to celebrate that we've become an independent charter. About 30 minutes before the party is set to end, a friend and I decide that we're gonna leave early because we don't wanna get stuck in traffic. Of course, we end up getting stuck in said traffic anyway. And as I'm sitting there in the car, I'm scrolling through Twitter when I see something very, very concerning. Someone has tweeted, "Pray for South Lawrence." Now, Lawrence is an old mill city. It's about 7 square miles total, and it's split by a river which creates North and South Lawrence. Why would somebody say, "Pray for South Lawrence," and not all of Lawrence in general? I keep scrolling, and I see that there are reports of houses randomly combusting in my neighborhood. Suddenly, I notice that there are sirens all around me, there are choppers above me, and there's a plume of smoke coming from where my house is across the river. We continue in traffic until we eventually get off the highway and approach my house. I see families filing into the streets, people with babies, children, students. I approach an older gentleman and I ask him what's going on. He replies to me in Spanish, which I don't understand, but everybody seems genuinely confused. The reports are saying that houses are exploding because of overpressurized gas lines that have been installed by my gas provider, Columbia Gas, and that we must all evacuate. They're also saying that for folks who are still in their homes, they should not open or close any doors or their houses will explode. I remember thinking, how can you get out of your house if you can't open or close any doors? Right before my block, we decide to turn back to the highway and join the line of evacuating people in the city. Luckily, no one is home. The only person I live with, my husband, works in Boston, and I call him to tell him not to get on the train that stops in South Lawrence, but instead to get off where he is and we'll come get him. I am worried about the house though. It's my parents' house and they leave me in charge of it since they live in California. I call my father across the country and I tell him what's going on. And even though he's in shock, he arranges for us to stay with a family friend. On our way to Boston, about an hour in, I receive a call from my principal saying that one of my students, Lionel, has passed away from the explosions. Now, Lionel was a young man that I had taught the year before, and him and I didn't always get along. But this year he had told me it was gonna be his year. So he had actually turned in his homework the day before because he wasn't gonna be in school that day. It was his birthday and he was going to take his driver's test. According to my principal, he took his driver's test, he passed, and he had driven to a friend's house where he was sitting in the driveway when the house exploded. The chimney then fell on his car, killing him and injuring his friend. I'm devastated by this news. Immediately, I'm struck by the fact that if someone I know has passed away from this environmental disaster, then there are so many more people that are gonna die before the day is through. When we eventually arrive at my friend's house, there are 80 individual fires raging across 3 different cities. We sit on the couch the entire weekend watching reports of Lionel's face flashing on the news as the only casualty of this tragedy, thank God. But I also see my neighbor's house burning on the news, the bodega near my house abandoned, and I see city and state officials frazzled at press conferences, but them themselves not knowing what's going on. I want to be really angry at Columbia Gas, who routinely takes my money for gas and heat. I want to be righteous in my anger that something so catastrophic had happened to my city. But instead, I am numb and afraid. When we eventually return to my house, there are people I've never seen before in yellow jackets who are drilling nonchalantly up and down the street for months. They come into our house saying that they need to check this or turn that off, and we're just expected to let them in because they work for Columbia Gas. I feel increasingly unsafe. We are assigned a rideshare service during this time to drive us to and from work. They give us a gym membership so that we can shower because we have no hot water. And they give us money to replace all the food that has rotted when we evacuated. I don't know how to sleep during this time. I often wake up in the middle of the night thinking that the house is on fire. I always feel the ground shaking, no thanks to the drilling yellow jackets. And I'm often doom scrolling on Twitter, searching the words South Lawrence, lamenting that, like many of my millennial peers, I do not own a television. Eventually, when it gets cold around October, they relocate us to a hotel in Chelmsford because our house has no heat. During that time, we're assigned many different drivers, many of whom ask me where I'm from. When I tell them Lawrence, they empathize with my experience and they ask me how I'm doing. Many of these rides are therapeutic and they soothe me until I can make it to a therapist to help me process this experience. During one ride with a young man from Lawrence, we talk about how unjust it is that something like this is happening in an immigrant community where many of us do not own our homes and will not receive insurance payouts. We talk about how we are always expected to survive things like this and be grateful that we're alive. I mentioned to him that Columbia Gas is having a town hall where they'll be listening to the grievances of the people affected by this disaster. Why would I go to that, he says. People like that never listen to us. I feel his frustration. These people had hurt us, after all. But why not go? If they listen, they listen. If they say no, they say no. At least we spoke up for ourselves. Truthfully, I have trouble taking my own advice. There are times when Columbia Gas says that they're gonna send a check by this date or something will be fixed by this time, and it doesn't happen. Like many of my neighbors, I am tired of waiting. But months later, when I can finally sleep, I take my own advice and I go down to a town hall to testify about my lived experience. I share with them a poem I wrote about how to sleep again after houses randomly combust in your neighborhood, to remind myself that I don't just deserve to survive. I deserve to feel safe, and I deserve to have peace of mind, especially in my own home and neighborhood. Thank you.